G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, we are going to be having a look at a very, very special match. And this was done on my live streams. So if you want to come and give me a follow, if you want to subscribe, if you want to do that. We've reached 25-ish subscribers, so we've got a couple new emote slots. I'm going to try and work something a little bit more decent than what I have now. But, sometimes I'll live stream EU time zone, sometimes I'll live stream my own. It depends. It depends on what I'm feeling. And so, always up for a chat, almost always up for a discussion, sometimes up for a rant. Good times. All good vibes, no bad vibes whatsoever. Speaking of vibes, we are going to be vibing in the Swift F7. The Swift F7 is perhaps one of the more interesting planes in the game because it has the only beam riding missiles in the game as it stands currently. A beam riding missile essentially works by... some of them work slightly differently, but most of the time it's either fed through the radar of the plane or kind of like a laser designator, and you just point your laser on where you want the missile to go, and the missile will home on the laser. I'm not quite sure how the Fireflashes work, but these are probably one of the most interesting missiles in the game. I will say that right now, I really, really think the Fireflash missiles are not that great, but they are really, really fun. They're honestly some of the most fun missiles I've played with in-game. Period. Granted, I haven't really used the AA Nords, and I don't really feel like it sometimes, but the Fireflashes are just incredible. The way they work is you essentially mouse guide them to the target, and you might think, wow, that's pretty overpowered. That's pretty insane, to be honest. And in some cases it can be. But most cases, it's really, really not. You can see, for the first time in War Thunder history, I am climbing like a prop. And that is to get to 4,000 meters, or 6,000 in this case, to intercept the bombers. Now, the bombers are going to be my primary target here. I'm going to try and engage bombers, simply because the Fireflash missiles are best at doing that. However, I'll see about one bomber early this game. But strap yourselves in, this is probably going to be one of the best games that I've put up on YouTube in a while, in terms of just raw kills. So, what is actually good about the Swift F7? I think, personally, the Afterburner is the sellout, or the standout for me, rather. I think it's perhaps the best part of this plane, without any competition. The Afterburner on the Avon engine that we have here on the Swift F7 gives it a capability that the Swift F1 could only dream of. And whilst the Swift F1 is a decent plane, I don't quite like it as much as the Swift F7. I think the F7 is a lot more capable, in many respects, and one of those respects being high altitude performance. The Afterburner just gives it so much more go, and it is refreshing, to say the least. Now, on the screen you will see that I've found myself a bomber, but it's not really going to work out that great, to be honest. Not for the Fireflashes anyway. You see, the Fireflashes have a very limited G tolerance. And by G tolerance, I mean maneuverability in this case. It sort of works a little bit differently. But you can't just sort of swing the missile around like a Nord. I think that's fairly balanced, to be honest. And you can see here that if the B-57 is going to put himself into a turn, then I can't really do much else but engage with the guns. And I get a nice little critical hit. He's going to start going down, and Canberras with heavy wing damage like that, especially on the inside, are going to go down. Don't know what that 163 was thinking there. Not really the smartest thing there, buddy. Not really the smartest thing there. You've just put yourself below a Banshee and below an F-84, which will outrun you. So, you're kind of asking for your death there, but at the same time, I've managed to get myself the first kill. Strap yourselves in, because this is going to be a long match, but very, very rewarding. F-89s. Now, these things, I'm not going to deal with them, because I'm going to send forth my first Fire Flash, and I'm going to get a critical hit in a head-on. You can do that with these things because they are, I believe, like a laser pointer. You just point where you want them to go, and they will eventually follow. Eventually being the key word, and only to 4 kilometers. The Fire Flash is only good for 4 kilometers, and so I think it is actually a really good head-on missile. As for the Nords, I think they're probably much better at like catching up or hitting something that is maneuvering. They're sort of side grades of each other, and I kind of like that. Obviously, you don't get the Nords on any British aircraft as it stands, but honestly, I think having different missiles in different trees like this is kind of cool, because every tree has something unique and something good to grind, and I think that makes things really worth it. Now, I'd like to get you guys to focus your attention on the Swift here. This is a Swift F1. And he's doing a damn good job to keep up with me. And I send forth a Fire Flash, but there's no way that's going to hit at all. And you can see that my airspeed is starting to dwindle. I'm almost having to resort to putting up my flaps just to keep up with this Swift F1. And that is because the Swift F1 has built up all of its speed from traveling towards the battlefield. I haven't gotten that chance, and so I'm a little bit lackluster when it comes to my acceleration, and there goes that A5 Sabre. The Swift F1 is actually keeping with me really, really well, but it's ultimately going to result in the Swift's demise. The F1 is a decent plane, and I said that in the F1 video. I just don't enjoy it, and I think I enjoy the F7 a lot more because it has a bit more capability all around than the F1, which is of course why it has a higher battle rating. You can see that I'm barely keeping up with this F1, but that's because he's built up so much speed, and he's using his speed very, very wisely. He's going up into verticals and then coming a little bit back down, and I'm, on the other hand, having to climb up into him. But you can see here, this is where he makes his fatal mistake. He puts himself into a dive and then puts himself in front of my guns. Very, very critical mistake. A couple of quick, sweet bursts with the Aidens, almost said Defas. We're not quite French here, so we're not going to, commit this heresy. It's Aidens, please. It's okay. They're different guns, slightly different, but regardless, the Aidens work quite well. Now, I'm going to skip forth a little bit to show you guys how to land properly in a Swift. And you might not think that that's much, but this thing does not lose any speed, and you have to come in really, really slow. You don't have air brakes, you have got your flaps, but they do rip at certain speeds that you might not expect. So you have to really take your time to slow down. Come in at a nice, slow 230 kilometers per hour, and most of the airfields that you will encounter in War Thunder will allow you to stop well before you run out of airspace. Don't be like that guy who is the flaming pile of explosions. Land nice and safe. Be very safe in your Swifts. Regardless, I'm going to go back into the air. I've got my Fire Flashes again. I've got some ammo and fuel, which I'm taking 8 minutes of. And you can see, as I turn the camera, there is an Oregon right behind me. I believe it's an Oregon. It's a French boy, and it's a Dassault plane. So I know it's going to basically perform like a Mystère on in a wheelchair, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my acceleration, push away from him, and then get a little bit of separation. I'm going into a slight climb because of my afterburner. I'll be able to sustain the higher altitude performance better than the Oregon, and I'll be able to come back with more energy on top of him. So the Banshee is also being engaged. He's bleeding speed and energy as well, and I'm able to completely make that rollover without any hassles. This plane takes a while to maneuver, so you have to give it a little bit of distance. In this case, I've given it 3.5 kilometers, and in some cases you're going to want more, especially if your enemies have a lot more speed. Speaking of speed, this Banshee is out of speed, and I'm trying to pretty much collect him before he goes into the ground, but he doesn't, which is to his credit, and now I'm able to basically boom and zoom like a prop. I go for my altitude because I have better altitude performance, and then I go for the dive because they're energy trapped. I wouldn't normally do this, but you do get cases where a sort of boom and zoom type of maneuver is warranted in jets, especially if you have them energy trapped. Now, I try and go for a cheeky shot, almost mow the lawn there, but I just escape. And that head-on puts the Mystère, or the Mirage, wow, Oregon, in a pretty crappy spot. He's got half a wing, you can see there, and it is an Oregon. That plane honestly should be 7-3. I don't know why it's 7-7. It really does not belong here. Regardless, I get a couple of quick shots. I don't waste too much ammo on it because I want to be able to use the ammo for the other two. And I can see the Banshee coming in here at just over 3 kilometers. I'm going to send one right away. I'm going to send a missile because I know he's going to go head on. And it connects beautifully, just in time for me to evade the 20mm gunfire. You don't want to do that, I will say. You don't want to be doing that too much. If you're going to release your Firestreak missiles, release them at a range of about 4 kilometers, bang on, especially if you're going, only if you're going head on, rather. If you're going to go head on, go for that 4 kilometer range, and by the time that the missile connects, you'll probably have gotten around the 2 kilometer range, which is where they'll be sort of lining up their shots and taking a little bit extra care, and you might be able to catch them off guard. Now, this is Afghanistan, and this particular map has an auto-win condition, or at least so I thought, for one side, and it seems like it's been fixed, because as you'll see in this match, it'll sort of jump back and forth to our team is capturing the zone, and hostile team is capturing the zone, and it's just a never-ending cycle, which is perfect. This is exactly how it should be. And right as I see our team stopping the capture zone, I get an IL-28 nearby. And the IL-28 has probably gone to secure the victory for his team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage with the guns, because I'm just too far away for the missile to be effective. The Fireflash is a good missile. It certainly is. But you have to be super careful where you use it. You can't rush, and you can't engage at certain angles because it just won't work. It's a really, really finicky missile to get used to. And sometimes it's really good. And sometimes it really just flops. And that is why it's balanced. Because in certain situations where it's over-G'd, it just won't reach the target. Other times, it will, and you'll have a really, really great time. Now, this next section of the game is where I'd like to show you something. Now, I've gotten my ace. I am after more kills, of course. Well, I'm on 6 kills now. But I want to show you why you shouldn't rush anything. Now, this particular section of the game is kind of embarrassing, to be honest. I should have been able to kill this IL-28 straight away. But I rushed this, and you'll see just how I make a fool of myself here. Now, I'm getting closer. I've closed the distance. And I'm not using my afterburner because I'm a little bit low on fuel. 8 minutes of fuel is good for performance, but really, really bad for endurance. Now, I'm going to let this guy get his bombs off because he's flying in a straight line when he gets his bombs off. And because he's not flying in a straight line, I use the guns. And I go to crit him with the guns. And now I have less than 100 rounds left. I need to be super careful. And I also need to be sure not to over-G the Fireflash. And yep, there I go. I over-G the Fireflash. Now I'm sitting behind an IL-28. Not very smart. I'm afterburning now, but I've only got 24 rounds left. And despite him putting himself in a turn, I'm not really able to get a good shot off onto this IL-28. And that's partially because of the gun placement. It is a little bit weird. And I almost eat the dirt there because I almost get shot out of the sky. You have to take your time with these things. You really should never rush. This plane requires thought and care. And if you rush into things and just, go willy-nilly, you won't come out of it alive. And that's something you have to be really mindful of when flying the Swift. And in fact, when flying anything in War Thunder. You have to take your time and you have to be patient. So, we're going to skip forward. And I've got myself some more Fireflashes. I've got myself some more ammo and some more fuel. One of the things that you have to remember about the Swift is stock, you are not going to be as good. Now, I didn't get a chance to say this earlier, but go for the boosters. The boosters on this plane, the new boosters, make the plane so much better. It just becomes so responsive, and 1,000 kilometers per hour will no longer be your maximum speed due to being unable to maneuver, basically. This plane excels between 800 kilometers per hour and 600 kilometers per hour. It's so nice. But what we're going to focus on now is that dot. Now, I didn't see the marker at first, but it wasn't moving. That means either two things. It's still, or it's heading straight towards me. And because it's heading straight towards me, I'm going to send a Fireflash that way. And because it didn't connect, I'm going to send another one. And just as it gets within his range, I managed to make the connection. You can do head-ons with this thing, but it needs to be almost direct head-ons, and you need to get a long range on this. You need to start at 4 kilometers or 3 kilometers, and you should not be doing it at 2, because you will end up coming out second best. They travel at about the same speed as a 50 cal, or as an M2, and you'll find yourself often receiving a lot of either 50 cals or 37s or 30s or whatever, and it's not very healthy. So what you want to do is increase that distance so that you basically save yourself the hassle. Anyway, 140k Silver Lions, 20-something KRP for 7 kills in the Swift. Very nice indeed. Anyway, ladies and gents, that'll do for today. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.